Well, hello, everyone. I'm Tyler Chrestman, and welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. Today on the podcast, we actually have a very special day. We get to celebrate justice being done. We get to celebrate a victory for the American criminal justice system. I am happy to announce that we have finally put Jussie Smollett's vicious attacker behind bars, and I, for one, am very happy about it. I hope that Jussie Smollett can rest easy knowing that Jussie Smollett is going to be behind bars for his vicious attack on Jussie Smollett. It is going to, I know that our criminal justice system works because that evil Jussie Smollett is going to jail for his terrible attack on Jussie Smollett. And if that is the most confusing bit of information that you have heard recently, don't worry, I'm going to explain all of it to you here on this episode. For those of you who are completely unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, and Jussie Smollett is, who prior to 3 years ago, I think most people were pretty confused on who Jussie Smollett is. He is an actor. I heard him recently described as the now disgraced actor Jussie Smollett. He played a role, I think he was most well known for a role on the television show Empire. I've never seen the show. Apparently it's fairly popular, but I had never seen it. But that's his role. He was an actor known for that show. 3 years ago, Jussie Smollett rose to national fame when he was the purported victim, of a hate crime in Chicago. According to Jussie Smollett, in the middle of the night, he went outside to get a Subway sandwich, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and he was attacked outdoors by two men wearing MAGA hats, and he claimed that they beat him up, threw bleach on him, put a noose around his neck, and then left him outside. Now, again, this was in the middle of the night, in the middle of the polar vortex, if any of us remember that. It was negative 20 degrees outside, but Jussie Smollett, he wanted that Subway sandwich very badly and went outdoors to get it 1 o'clock in the morning and happened to run into the two MAGA hat wearing Trump supporters who also watched the TV show Empire and were familiar with who Jussie Smollett was. He said that they called him homophobic slurs and racist words. He walked back to his hotel and they called the police. The police showed up and began taking a statement from him. He still was wearing the noose around his neck. This is half an hour after the attack occurred. And he was still holding his Subway sandwich, which, by the way, I think he would make him a great spokesperson for Subway. Prior to this whole last week, maybe, it would have made him a great spokesman for Subway when your sandwich is so important that you can survive what was later called a modern-day lynching and still hold on to your cold cut. I feel like you'd be a good spokesman for the product until the police launched an actual investigation. Because go figure, the police were going to take this hate crime seriously, and they launched an investigation. And one of the detectives says he was immediately put off by the way Jussie Smollett interacted with the police. They wanted to get some basic information from him about the attack, and he seemed very cagey, didn't want to talk to him, and then all of a sudden became uncooperative when they wanted to, for example, figure out exactly where the attack had occurred. And they said, "Can we see your phone so we can go through the location history?" And he refused. Now, you don't have to give the police your phone. But one of the detectives said he became concerned because Jussie Smollett acted in a way that led him to believe, as a person who interacts with criminals daily, that this man had something to hide. Now, the Fourth Amendment says you are protected against unlawful search and seizure. You do not have to give the police anything you don't want. You don't have to. Even if you're the victim of a crime, you don't have to give them your phone. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because the police detective said that his behavior was that of someone who was definitely trying to hide something. So the police look into it, and immediately this story begins to unravel in the eyes of the police. However, not in the eyes of the media and not in the eyes of our elite political class. So it turns out, as this investigation goes on, that Jussie Smollett, who at this point has risen to national acclaim and is doing interviews with Barbara Walters and all these people and talking about his story. Why did they target you, Jussie? Well, I think it's because I really go hard on 45, meaning, oh, I really come after Donald Trump online, so I think they're targeting me. I guarantee you that none of the people out there who support Donald Trump and are the MAGA hat wearing guys that you're talking about, they don't know who you are. Those people are not the demographic that watch Empire. I'll tell you that. I don't believe that those two pieces of the Venn diagram ever overlap. That's just a personal opinion. I don't really have the Nielsen rating to back that up, the facts, but I'm just going to say I think that that's probably safe to say. But he said, oh, it's because he's such a vocal critic of Donald Trump that all these racist homophobes attacked him in the middle of the polar vortex at night on the streets of Chicago. And everyone just ate this story up. They ran with it like there is absolutely no way that anyone could possibly doubt that this could happen in America, because America is a terrible, bad, evil, racist, homophobic place, and this definitely could have occurred. Now, the rest of us, the sane people out there, said, well, some of this sounds a little weird, and maybe we should wait till they conclude their investigation. Because an unfortunate fact is that, unfortunately for some, most of these people on the very far left who look for racism in every aspect of American life at all times. Your Ibram X. Kendis, your Robin DiAngelos, your Ta-Nehisi Coates. I have said before, if Ibram X. Kendi walks down the street and he trips because the sidewalk's uneven, somehow he'll be able to tie that back to structural racism in the system. Everywhere that man looks is racism. And what I love about him the most is if you ask the man to define racism, here's an actual quote, slightly paraphrased because I don't remember it exactly, but slightly paraphrased, an actual quote from Ibram X. Kendi when asked to define racism. He said, racism is when racist people commit racist actions with the help of a racist system. I would, if the dictionary behaved that way, no one would understand language at all. What is an airplane? An airplane is a plane that flies through the air and is up in the air with the other airplanes. It's like, this is ridiculous, dude. You can't even define the word racism, which I feel like should be day one in grifter school. If you're going to talk about a subject, you should at least be able to define the word. Anyway, I don't like him. I think he's terrible. But that's a side note. The important part here, what we're coming back to, is that everyone believes that this story could happen, but the supply of racism in the United States is not enough to meet the demand on the left. So what we've seen, and this has happened in a lot of colleges across the country, is you'll see these reports of the N-word being scrawled on the side of a campus dormitory, or some homophobic attack, some racist attack that happens on campus, words that are written, a flaming cross that's found, all these things that happen that turn out to be hoaxes. And typically they're done by teenage to early 20s people who are looking for attention. And this is a terrible thing that these people do that you can contribute to them being moronic kids. When you're late teens, early 20s, you're still a kid. When I was 21, I was basically a child. It's just the way it works. You don't grow up. You don't have any common sense until you're much older, it seems like. At least in my personal opinion. That was the case for me. I was probably mostly an idiot until I was about 27. That seems to be the case in my life. And I think that you look at it, and so we said, hey, wait a minute. This story seems a bit ridiculous. And I know that everyone in the media wants to gobble it up because anything that causes divisive behavior, anything that highlights the negative aspects of America, the left-leaning newspapers, the corporate press, the leftists who already hate this country and think everything is systemic racism and bigotry, these people will gobble it up, truth, hook, line, and sinker, and not worry about whether or not it's true or not. Whereas someone like me, I hate that I have to say this, but I'll say it again and again. I hate racism. I hate bigots. I do not care for anyone who discriminates against people on the color of their skin, their sexual preference. That stuff is you're a bad person if you do that. However, what really bothers me on the other side is when we just accept everything as stated fact. So you're looking at a guy like Jussie Smollett. He says this story. I, from the jump, thought, that seems weird. That doesn't seem like a real thing. And if it is a real thing, those guys should go to jail for forever. You don't get to beat people up in the streets, put a noose around their neck, threaten to kill them. Sorry, you go to prison for a long time. And when the facts come out, you have to watch these people. No one backpedals. They don't ever take it back. They don't ever say, I'm sorry for the condemnation that I said about America, that it's bad, and this was an example. Actually, let's do this real quick because we have it pulled up here. I want to highlight for a second. Oh, don't click on that. I'm going to highlight for a second some very fun things that we're going to do here. Click and click. Okay. So we have some fun tweets that we pulled up from our political betters. How about Nancy Pelosi? The racist, homophobic attack on Jussie Smollett is an affront on our humanity. No one should be attacked for who they are, whom they love. I pray Jussie has a speedy recovery and that justice is served. Well, Nancy, don't you worry. Rest easy. Justice has been served. How about the wonderful AOC? This attack was not possibly homophobic. It was racist and homophobic. If you don't like what's happening to our country, then work to change it. It's no one's job to water down or sugarcoat the rise of hate crimes. Okay, so she's saying that, look, this is just another example of how bad the country is. We have a rise in hate crimes. She is neglecting to mention the fact that the rise in hate crimes have been mostly coming from the black community. The black on Asian crime is up substantially since the beginning of the pandemic. But let's ignore that for a second because clearly this was a racist attack, and racism is only when white people are bad. And so AOC uses that as an example of racism in the system. How about Cory Booker? The vicious attack on actor Jussie Smollett is an attempted modern-day lynching. I'm glad he's safe. To all those in Congress who don't feel the urgency to pass our anti-lynching bill designating lynching as a federal hate crime, I urge you to pay attention. So now you have an elected member of the Senate, one of the 100 most important people in the government, using this case as an example to pass a bill. By the way, it's a ridiculous bill. Lynching is already a crime. You're not allowed to murder people. That's already a crime. And if it was a murder based on the race of a person, a racist murder, there's also a hate crime law. You're not allowed to commit hate crimes. These are the kind of laws that do absolutely nothing. They're symbolic just because Cory Booker wants to say, look, I said lynching's bad, and here's a bill I passed. Doesn't do anything. Changes no one's life. And also based on a falsity that Jussie Smollett was lynched, which is ridiculous. How about our now Vice President, Kamala Harris? Well, again, this is an attempted modern-day lynching. No one should have to fear for their life because of their sexuality and color of their skin. We must confront this hate. Well, Kamala, you're right. Jussie Smollett shouldn't have to fear, and apparently didn't have to fear for his sexuality or the color of his skin. He probably went out looking for bigots to beat him up and just couldn't find any. Had to hire two guys to do it for him. It's just, again, you have Maxine Waters, the now disgraced Governor Andrew Cuomo, blah, 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 Gavin Newsom, all of them. Sheila Jackson Lee. Oh, man. It's just, these people are not, they're not serious people. This is another great one. I don't know this person. I'm not sure. While relieved that Jussie Smollett has not suffered any permanent physical damage, I am deeply concerned by how free some people feel to attack others for who they are, who they love, and the long-term damage this does to our society. That's Representative Frederica Wilson. Not sure where she's from. But anyway, I'm going to say the thing is, the reason why we're talking about this, the reason why it's important, is because America is not, there's not enough racism to supply what the left demands. The left is making the case that America is systemically racist, that there is this underbelly of bigotry that exists in this country that they have to fight against every day. Well, then why is it that I can pull up example after example after example of people faking their own racial hoax to get attention, to get sympathy. This idea that we have that comes from intersectionality, that your self-worth or your value, what you can say, your truth, your personal truth, which is a phrase that I can't stand, has some inherent value based on how much of a victim you are, is cancerous to society. These people are trying to use victimhood to gain status because the left prizes victimhood as a status symbol. If you are the black transgender little person, you basically could be president of the United States tomorrow if only leftists had the vote. They would say, well, we can't have another white man in office. We need somebody different. And they say, well, who's the most different you could possibly have? And they'd say, well, you're both a minority in terms of your race. You're a minority because you're transgender. You're a minority because you're a little person. That is clearly the most valuable person of our society. We have to elect them. I don't care. Most people don't care, by the way. It's funny, when you look at, for example, the term Latinx, when they poll the Latin community, they try to get rid of the gendered language of the Latin American languages like Spanish. Latinos hate the term Latinx. This is a creation by white people for Latinos, and they dislike it. Well, the same can be said for black people when they're polled about things like this. Did they think that Joe Biden should have said, oh, we're only going to hire a black woman for the Supreme Court? Most black people when polled said, no, that's not appropriate. Look at everybody. But leftists, and they typically are your white progressives, make these cases that the minorities that they purport to talk about don't even support on a whole when you look at polling. Now, everyone's an individual. They can think what they want. You shouldn't talk about the black community like they believe one thing. But when you look at polling of what the black community actually thinks, they don't like this stuff any more than anyone else. They look at someone like me, who I consider myself in the middle and just really despises the far left politics. They agree with me. But the left acts like all black people are Jussie Smollett, and they believe that victimhood is their way forward when most black people don't agree with that by polling data. So you say the reason why this is important is because we can all be happy that Jussie Smollett, the race hoaxer and grifter, is going to spend 150 days in jail and has to pay $145,000 back to the city of Chicago for the overtime that the officers incurred trying to help him. We can be happy that someone like that is being held accountable for their actions. But at the same time, we should feel bad because our society shouldn't make people seem like victimhood is your way forward. We shouldn't be teaching people that. And we've taught a lot of people that. They think that if your life is hard and you can generate sympathy and empathy, that's the way to gain prestige in the society. And that's not a way to make a society full of winners who will work hard to succeed. That's how you make a bunch of losers. It is. Life is hard for everybody. What you do is you get up, you move forward. And not to quote Rocky Balboa in a political sentence here, but I'm going to. He said in the movie that life's not about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and move forward. That is a great piece of philosophical advice for anyone. Life is going to hit you every day. It's going to take punches. It's going to knock you down. And it's not about what life throws at you. It's about how you interact with those things that life throws at you. What do you do? Do you overcome or do you succumb? That is the difference between people who succeed and people who don't. And what we're teaching people, what we're teaching young people especially, is that if your life is hard and you can be aggrieved and you can claim a victim status, then that's how you can move forward, because you'll say, aha, the system's against me. And then you'll think everyone will reach out and pat you on the back and say, we know the system's against you. Here's a hand up. No, you don't need that. You don't need that to succeed in life. You just need to put your head down and work harder. Everyone doesn't start off the same. It's true. Some people have a disadvantage. Some black people have a disadvantage because they're black. That is shitty. We should fix that wherever we can. A lot of white people have a disadvantage too. You're born in a bad home. You're born to parents who are addicted to drugs. You are born in an abusive household. These problems affect everybody. Everybody has a different set of problems. To hyper-focus, to hyper-fixate on one problem is a mistake. What you do is you say, what we need to do is get everything out of the way. So where we find racism, get rid of it. Where we can point to it specifically and say, there it is, we get rid of it. Where we can point to hardships that we can fix, we should fix them. But you don't say, well, when life is hard, complain about it until somebody reaches out and gives you a cookie. No. When life is hard, work harder. No one cares, work harder. And that's the message that we're teaching, and it's the exact opposite of that's the message we should be teaching, and then it's the exact opposite of what we are teaching. And Jussie Smollett is just a prime example, and also something that I'm just very happy, because I, for one, was worried as long as Jussie Smollett's attacker was free to walk the streets. So now that he is in jail, I think we can all breathe easy, knowing that the streets are safer without Jussie Smollett's attacker being out there. Anyway, this is it's a fun story, because I always appreciate when people get their comeuppance. You shouldn't celebrate other people's misery, but when the other person is trying to make society worse, which by stoking divisive tension in a country that is already divided, you're making the country worse. And so we can always appreciate when they get what they have coming to them, which is great. Also, just a real quick side note, when he was sentenced to 150 days in jail, he raised the black power fist and said, I'm not suicidal. If anyone tries to kill me, it's not me. If I die, I didn't do it. Somebody tried to kill me. And you say, dude, you're going to jail because you couldn't even find someone to beat you up outside. You had to pay someone to do it outside. What do you think? So someone's going to Jeffrey Epstein you? No, that's not going to happen, dude. You're safe. Trust me. You don't have any secrets that need to be silenced. You're just a psychopath. Anyway, we're going to leave it there today. We are about to have a special announcement. We're about to have another episode with our good friend here at the podcast, Jacob Turner. We're going to do a second interview with him. That's coming up. It'll probably be released in the next couple days, so that's pretty fun. Stay tuned for that. And as always, make sure, whether you're on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, whatever it is, like, comment, subscribe, send me questions, do fun stuff. The Facebook page used to be big. It's slowed down. A lot of people are commenting on the new Rumble stuff, which I enjoy. Rumble is the future, in my opinion. So anyway, everyone, hope you have a great day, and I will catch you on the next episode.